What is going on, everybody? So, this is a pretty important week for those that work in EMS. This is National EMS Week here in the US. I think, really, I don't know. I don't know if it's celebrated across the world or not. But to me, this is an important week because this is a week that we should all be thanking those that work in EMS. Paramedic, EMTs, EMRs. I mean, really, anybody that works in the EMS field, we should be thanking them. This week, a lot of hospitals, um, different organizations, restaurants even tend to give back to different agencies, different fire departments, so on and so forth. Donate food, give t-shirts, little knickknacks, little prizes, that sort of thing. They do all this stuff, right? And it seems like this is the only time of year where people in EMS are recognized for the hard work that they do and for the dedication that they give to the people in the community. Now, it is no secret that the people that work in EMS aren't doing it for the thanks. They're not doing it for the pat on the back. They're not doing it to get awards. They're doing it because they care. And quite honestly, a lot of people that work in EMS have the mentality of if I don't do it, who will? Pretty sad that that's a thought, but it's been a thought in my head before. I will tell you that these people don't get near enough recognition. I was watching a video the other day and it was talking about the fire service and how, back in the day when the fire department first started, we're going back hundreds of years, when the fire department first started, they were primarily making fire calls. In fact, EMS is a fairly new program. Like if you think back far enough, at one point it was funeral homes. They would drive the hearse to come pick you up and take you to the doctor, to the hospital, or whatever. Before that, doctors made house calls. They would just come out to your house and check on you and treat you and do whatever you needed. Then at some point, police departments started taking over. Police departments would, police officer would come out to your house and check on you, and they'd pretty much just transport. They really weren't doing a whole lot. And then as time went on, there was the creation of EMS, emergency medical technicians, eventually paramedics, and it started to grow from there. The big problem is that even though the need and the call for action as far as needing more paramedics and more EMTs has grown, nothing else has. Pay still isn't that great. I think it's getting better, but it's still not as good as it could be. The benefits aren't that great. It's getting better, but not as good as it could be. Problem is a lot of these EMS agencies across the country. Now, I'm primarily talking about private EMS agencies, not ones that are necessarily associated with fire departments, but private agencies and hospital based. They don't really take care of their people near as good as they could. Now, am I saying that they're all bad? Absolutely not. There are some amazing agencies out there, some amazing programs, but at the end of the day, every place could be better. The one thing that all agencies can improve on is preparing new EMTs, new paramedics for what it is that they're going to see, what they're going to deal with out in the real world. And it starts when they're going through the program, when they're in paramedic school, when they're trying to get their EMT certification. It starts there. Now, you may be wondering, how the hell can you prepare somebody for something that they don't even know how they're going to react to? Well, I'll tell you, it is difficult. It's extremely difficult. But the first thing that you can do, the most important thing you can do, is be honest with people. This past weekend, I attended the Indiana EMS Association award banquet. Now, this award banquet, they honor EMTs and paramedics from across the state for different awards. Now, how this works is somebody nominates another person. Go on their website, nominations are open on the website. They go in there, they type something up about this person and why they feel this person should win XYZ award. And then that actually gets sent off to one, maybe two other associations somewhere else in the country. And then it's voted on so that there's not any liability per se. So that somebody doesn't come back and say, oh, you chose so and so for this award because you're friends with them. Well, that's not the case. Like, it actually goes through a process, and that's pretty much how it's done. So this year there was an EMT of the year. There was, I believe, a dispatcher of the year and an educator of the year. There's also an award called the Golden Siren. Golden Siren, you have to be I'm not sure if you have to be a paramedic, but you have to have been in EMS for 25 years or more. And again, you get nominated. And I believe, I could be wrong on this. I'm sure if somebody from that association or somebody that's won that award or knows more than I do, if they hear this episode, they will correct me. But I believe those nominations are then voted on by previous Golden Siren Award winners, and they choose who wins. Now, this for this year, there were 4 winners. I am proud to say that I knew at least one of those Golden Siren winners. I also knew the Educator Award winner, and I knew the EMT of the Year Award winner. And I'm very proud of every single one of them. It is extremely well deserved by all of them. My hats go off to you, and thank you all for the service that you have given to your communities, continue to give to your communities for as long as you have. I sincerely applaud you. So I attended that. At that time, I was talking with somebody that I hadn't seen in quite a while. I would say a good friend. And we were talking about about when random people come up to you and they find out that you're a medic or you're an EMT or whatever, or a firefighter or a police officer, and they always want to know the same thing. Now, for you, the listener, I bet you can guarantee what it is that I'm going to say. But they always want to know, what's the worst thing you've ever seen? And instantly everybody gets upset about it, right? Obviously, not to that person typically. They're not going off on that person and be like, how dare you ask me that question? A lot of people just avoid the question. I know I, in the past, have used the response of, I'm not going to tell you the worst thing I've ever seen because I don't want you to have to live through that. I don't want you to have to imagine what it was that I witnessed. But it got me thinking, and I know I've talked about this before, but are we avoiding that to truly save somebody else pain and misery? If it's your family, I mean, I could kind of see that. You know, I may not tell my wife the worst thing I've ever seen. I may not tell my mom or my dad or my aunts or uncles or whatever because I don't want them to worry about me. But random people, are we really trying to save them from listening to what we have to say? Or are we doing it because we don't want to have to relive it? I'm willing to bet that the answer is the latter. We don't want to relive it ourselves. It's the worst thing we've ever seen. Why would we want to bring that back into the front of our memory and relive it all over again? Because chances are, when we dealt with that incident at that time, it took us some time to get over it. So the last thing we want to do is talk about it again and relive it. But here's why I think it's important that we do. I think it's important that we share those stories. We share those stories with random strangers on the street. We share those stories with people that are wanting to become EMTs or firefighters or police officers or whatever. We share those stories with them. We share those stories on a podcast, such as The Debrief. I think it's important that we do that because it's not only healthy for us, but it also gives an understanding to that person that we're talking to what it is that we actually go through. I just mentioned to you a little bit on how EMS is still a fairly new career, and yet there hasn't been much progression up the ladder as far as EMS goes. And what I mean by that is nurses, let me back up. EMS is kind of like the bastard child of the medical field. It's also the bastard child of public safety. Keep in mind, I worked in EMS for quite a while, but it's the bastard child. And it's because it's so new and so young. But one of the other reasons I think is the case is unless you have needed EMS service as a civilian, or you have worked in that field, or you have worked very closely with EMTs and paramedics, you really have no idea what they do. Think of how many people call us ambulance drivers. Now, back in the day, that used to be the case. That used to be the only thing that you did. You literally threw the patient in the back of the truck or in the back of a van or the back of a hearse or whatever, and you drove them to the hospital and you didn't do anything for them. That's not the case today. There are so many departments across the country now that are administering blood to patients that need it on scenes. A lot of these paramedics are administering more drugs than even ERs administer. And in some cases, these paramedics are doing things, doing skills that a lot of nurses inside ERs aren't allowed to do. So it's not the case anymore of just being an ambulance driver. Medics do a lot now. And there are some cases where medics can treat a patient and not even transport them to the hospital. While it's rare, there are some situations that call for that. So, while it's true that they do drive ambulances, that's not all they do. And one of the main reasons why I think the public still thinks that way is because we aren't sharing our stories. We're not telling people the things that we deal with on a daily basis. Think about this also. Why do people continue to abuse the system? Why does it seem like there is a rise on abuse of the system? Well, one, it's because it's allowed. It continues to be allowed for whatever reason. But two, it's because people don't know that it's a problem. Unless we're sitting here telling everybody, like, yeah, I just transported a 22-year-old who stubbed their pinky toe on the bedpost. I had to take him to the ER. We joke about it, we laugh about it. There's plenty of TikTokers out there and other people, content creators that make fun of these stories all the time. People don't realize that it's actually true, that it's legit. This happens a lot. It's not just necessarily one call a day, it happens multiple times. Now, granted, I've been out of EMS for a while, but I can almost guarantee you this is still an ongoing issue. So, kind of going back to why I think it's important that we share those stories. I've mentioned to you before that I don't think everybody that is having a hard time, either with a call or with multiple bad calls or whatever, I don't think that everybody has to immediately run to a therapist. I don't think that's an immediate answer. Most of the time, going to a therapist is not like going to the ER. It's not necessarily an emergent thing. It's also not an immediate fix most of the time. What I will tell you of things that have helped me, and I know has helped friends of mine and even guests that we've had on the show in the past, a lot of the times what helps the most is when you just talk to somebody. It doesn't have to be a therapist. It could be a friend, it could be a coworker, it could be anybody that's just willing to listen. But the big thing is, and I always tell everybody this, that when you need to go and talk to somebody, you want to talk to somebody who has an open mind, but somebody who also understands what your job is. Again, this goes back to we don't talk. So a lot of random people on the street don't necessarily know what it is that we do in EMS. So you want to talk to somebody that understands the job. You want to talk to somebody that isn't going to sit there and say, well, I would have done this or I would have done that. I call that an armchair quarterback. Somebody who is sitting off on the sidelines, was not on the scene, and basically wants to tell you what you did was wrong and how they would have done it differently. You don't want that. You want somebody who's going to listen. Now, if you want advice, you need to be straight up and honest with them. If you don't want advice, you need to be straight up and honest with them. Be like, hey, look, man, I had a really bad call this weekend. I just need to talk about it. Can you please just listen to me and let me vent? Yeah, yeah, absolutely. What's going on? And we'll sit there and talk. I can't tell you how many conversations I've had with people that have started off like that. If you're somebody who's being approached by somebody else who wants to vent and they just start going off and you know telling their story, assume that they're not looking for advice. Assume that they are just trying to vent and they just need you to listen. Obviously, do active listening. If you're not familiar with active listening skills, maybe we'll do a whole nother episode on that at some point. But you want to actively listen. You want to show them that you're listening to what it is that they have to say. If somebody comes up to you and says, "Hey, I need to vent to you. I need to talk about something." Be like, "Okay, are you looking for my advice or are you just looking for me to listen?" That's how I approach it. Obviously, everybody's different, so do with that what you will. This goes back to what I'm saying about talking about it. You need to talk about the job. Now, I'm not telling you to go out there and violate HIPAA and go on some random Facebook page and just start spewing about John Doe and how he shot himself in the foot with a pellet gun. I bring that story up because I had a friend that did that when we were kids. It still kind of cracks me up to this day. But you don't have to go and start giving out everybody's personal information. But I think more people need to hear about what it is that medics do. Everybody knows what a nurse does for the most part. Everybody knows what a doctor does. Everybody knows what a firefighter does. Everybody knows what a police officer does. Again, it comes back to how many people actually know what it is that a medic does. So, with that being said, I want to give a huge shout out to all of the paramedics out there, the advanced EMTs, the EMTs, the EMS dispatchers, all of the supervisors, the educators. I've had a few of them on this show. Anybody that has anything to do with EMS, including fire, I want to say thank you. You guys, chances are, have outlasted me in the program, in the field. And it's because of people like you, I don't have to worry if something happens to my family while they're at home or while they're at the store or in a car accident or whatever. Because I know that there are some highly educated individuals out there in those trucks every single day, putting their life on the line to help a complete stranger in whatever situation it is that they're going through, whether it's a cardiac arrest from trauma or it's a stubbed toe at 3 a.m. by a 22-year-old guy. I appreciate every single one of you. So, a couple other things that I kind of want to touch on a little bit. I'm curious, and these are one of the things that I like to talk to new EMTs about, new paramedics about. I'm curious of how many of you actually wanted to go into EMS when you were a kid. I could tell you right now, I did not. I didn't even know what EMS was. In fact, I don't even remember a time that I ever saw an ambulance until I was about 12 years old. And there was an ambulance that came to my neighbor's house after she had a brain aneurysm and passed away. Had never seen an ambulance. I always wanted to be a cop. In fact, I didn't even want to be a firefighter until I was about 20 years old. I thought that is the dumbest job ever. Why in the hell would anybody want to run into a burning building while everybody's running out? Thought it was stupid. The only thing that was cool about it was they got to drive really big trucks. Thought that was awesome. I also thought being a volunteer firefighter was cool because you could put lights in your car and all that stuff. I know there's hitting it hard from the yard Facebook page and make fun of volunteers all the time. Point being, I always thought that stuff was cool, but I really wanted to be a cop. I wanted to basically work by myself, have my own squad car that I could take home, run lights and sirens, carry a gun, carry a taser, fight bad guys. That's what I wanted to do. But EMS, had never heard of it. So what made me decide to go into EMS? Honestly, it was my grandmother. My great grandma, who passed away in 2014, was my biggest cheerleader. She pushed me to do all sorts of things. She wanted me to be a cop too because she knew that was a dream of mine. But in all reality, she loved the idea of me working in public safety, doing something in that field. And one day, my grandma got real sick. I had moved in with her. I was helping take care of her. I had just quit working at a prison in central Indiana, and I had moved back home to help take care of her. And I found out that she had gotten diagnosed with a form of dementia, and I had noticed signs like her penmanship was getting smaller. Her brain was still intact, but for the most part, everything else was slowly starting to go. And as time went on, she continued to be my cheerleader, but it got to the point where she had to go into a facility to be taken care of all the time. I would go and visit her every single day. She eventually failed a swallow study. She ended up getting a trach. She ended up getting MRSA in her trach. She just started getting really sick really fast. And one day I was over at the nursing home that she was staying in, and it was me, and I believe it was her daughter, so my aunt. And she was not feeling well. When I got there, my aunt was telling me that she was complaining of chest pain the night before. And I asked her, I said, Grandma, did you tell the nurse or anybody that you were having chest pain? She said, yeah, they just gave me some Advil and just told me to relax. I said, okay, that's a problem. So I went and found the nurse. And again, she looked deathly ill, like pale white, looked weak, didn't want to do anything. So the nurse came in and tried to check her blood pressure. Failed miserably using one of those wrist cuffs. I hate those things. I don't think they're accurate at all. I'm sure somebody will tell me I'm nuts, but I think they're dumb. And she's getting this off the wall number. And I said, "Do you have a manual blood pressure cuff?" Yeah, I'll be right back. 5 minutes goes by and a whole nother nurse comes in because that nurse did not know how to check a manual blood pressure. That's fine. I'm not criticizing. It takes a little bit of skill to do a manual blood pressure. And if you don't do it very often, it could be a perishable skill. I think it's like riding a bike because I go and check blood pressure on my in-laws quite often. But you never know. Maybe it is a perishable skill. So the nurse comes in, her blood pressure is super low. So her blood pressure is low. Her heart rate is high. Her oxygen levels are low, probably because her trach hadn't been cleaned out since the night before. She's just really sick. So I looked at the nurse and first I asked my grandma, I was like, are you still having chest pain? And she said yes. I said, well, why, if she was having chest pain last night, why wasn't EMS called? They gave me some excuse. I don't even remember what the excuse was now. So I looked at the nurse and I said, okay, either you call 911 or I do. So they decided to call 911. And the medics that showed up, I still know exactly who the medics were that showed up. In fact, I got to work with them for a little bit. They came out and treated my grandmother like she was their grandmother. They were extremely nice to her. They made sure she was comfortable. They made sure that I was comfortable because I told them I was going to be following them to the hospital. They not only took care of my grandma, but they took care of me and my aunt as well. That is what EMS is. EMS, sure, you save lives. Sure, you go lights and sirens to emergency calls. You respond to car accidents. You respond to cardiac arrests. You respond to strokes. You respond to stubbed toes by a 22-year-old. You respond to all of these things. But at the end of the day, you're a caretaker. And care does not stop at just the patient. I've told this story a few times to people when I'm talking to others. I don't know that I've shared it with you as my listeners before or not. So I worked for two different private EMS agencies, one here in my home city and another one about 2 hours west of here. And both departments that I worked for, on two separate occasions, I responded to an overdose call. The one in town was a mother who had just gotten out of a rehab facility and immediately went up to her bathroom and injected heroin. And her son, who I believe was 12, found her in the bathroom, unconscious, unresponsive, pulled her out of the bathroom, did not think she had a pulse, immediately started CPR on his mom. His mom survived. She was given Narcan. and obviously oxygen and some other things. And we transported her to the emergency room, but she survived. Another incident was a dad who had also gone into the bathroom. This was a single story house, and his 8-year-old found him in the bathroom, unresponsive, unconscious, not breathing. Also dragged his father out of the bathroom at 8 years old and started CPR, knew enough to start CPR on his dad. His dad, unfortunately, did not make it. Both of those cases, there's a child involved. Myself and maybe a police officer in both situations actually made sure that we spoke with that child because here's something to think about. In an emergency situation like that, especially when it's involving violence or drugs that kids are present for, when their parent is involved in those kinds of situations, that child can go one of two directions. And it starts with you as soon as you get on scene. I don't care if you're a police officer, if you're a firefighter, if you're a medic. I don't care if you're a coroner. I, I don't care who you are. It starts with you. That child is either A, going to go down the exact same path that their parent did, become a drug addict, maybe a drug dealer, whatever, and probably end up in the same shoes as their mom or dad, or both. Or B, they're going to go down the path of the person that goes and talks to them and become a police officer or a firefighter or paramedic or a dispatcher or whatever. Chances are they're going to go down the path of whoever the person is that takes the time to check on them and to give care to them as well. I think it's safe to say for anybody who works in public safety, you're going to agree with me that we would much rather see those children end up in the field of public safety rather than becoming a drug addict. And the best way to help make that come to fruition is to go and talk to them, to check on them, have a conversation with them, see how they're doing. Give them an avenue to vent. Allow them to just get everything off of their chest. Allow them to cry. Allow them to just talk. You don't have to have the answers. Maybe they're going to ask questions. Maybe they'll ask questions like, why would my mom do this? Or why would my dad do this? Maybe they're going to say, is my mom or dad dead? Those are tough questions. But when you can give an answer, you need to make sure you're giving an honest answer. If mom died, we'll use the dad situation. Dad died. Not transporting. He had been dead for quite some. We did tell that child, yes, your father has died. We're not sugarcoating it. We're not saying your dad has gone somewhere else. Your dad has gone to a better place. We're not doing that because that opens up avenues for confusion. We don't want to cause any confusion. We want to be straight to the point. And that goes with anybody, not just kids. That goes with adults too. Don't sugarcoat it. If somebody dies, be honest with them and tell them your loved one has died. I don't even like using passed away. Your loved one has died. Just be honest with them, communicate with them. You may just be able to change their life. So the big question is, if you get into these fields, whether it's police, fire, or EMS, the question you need to ask yourself is why? Why do you want to do this job? Were you that child who lost their family member to drugs or violence or a medical issue or some kind of traumatic event? Did somebody make an impact on your life? Were you like me, who your grandmother was your biggest cheerleader and supported you in anything and everything you did, and all you wanted to do was make them proud? Whatever your reason is, I highly encourage you to figure out what your why is. And it may be difficult. That may be a difficult thing to figure out. Take some time, sit back and think about it, and write it down. Write it down somewhere where you're going to see it often. And when you start to have those bad days, start there. Look back and remember your why. By writing it down, that's going to help you remember the easiest, right? And we think about, when you're working in these fields, it's easier to remember the bad calls. It's not necessarily so easy to remember the good calls. So when you do come across these good calls, I'll give you an example. We used to do transfers from the local VA hospital to maybe another hospital or to a nursing home or whatever. We used to do transfers from there quite often. And I loved doing transfers from the VA because everybody there is a veteran and chances are, they're going to want to share their story. And I loved to just listen to their stories. I would transport World War II veterans, Vietnam veterans. I had a Korean War veteran once. It was amazing to hear their story and to hear what they went through. And at that age, they're still venting too, but they're also proud of the service that they provided to this country. I loved those transfers. So when you have good calls like that, or you go to an elderly patient's home that just fell, they don't have any injuries. They're not complaining of hip pain or leg pain or back pain or head pain or anything like that. They just slid out of their chair and you helped them get back up. Maybe you helped them get into bed. Maybe you had some time and you made them something to eat real quick, whatever the case may be. Remember those good calls, write those ones down too. Because when you do come across those bad calls and you're like, why the hell am I doing this job? You can look back at those. You can look back at the times that you went on a car accident and a child is involved in the vehicle and they just lift their hands up because they want you to hold them. That's why I did the job. Or when you're driving down the street and you see a bunch of kids and they got a lemonade stand and they're doing the old trucker, honk the horn signal. So you give them a little bit of blast of the air horn, maybe a blast of the siren, maybe you flip the lights on for them real quick and they get all excited and they're jumping up and down and they're cheering. Remember those calls, but remember your why. It's important to know that. It's also important to know what your expectations are that you want to get out of this job. Are you wanting to climb the ladder? Are you wanting to be an EMS for the rest of your life? Maybe you want to be a doctor someday, or maybe you want to be a nurse. Whatever the case may be, understand what your expectations are. And what's interesting too is if you decide to leave whatever field it is in public safety, there are so many other positions within public safety. Maybe you decide that you don't want to be a firefighter anymore, but you still love serving your community. You could be a dispatcher. You could be a police officer. You can be an arson investigator. You could be whatever. There's so many different agencies within that field that you can go and do. I think it's also important that you're realistic with yourself. Did you know that only 10% of people who experience an out of hospital cardiac arrest survive? And by survive, I mean they get discharged from the hospital with maybe mild deficits, if not no deficits. And honestly, that 10% is even a high number. You didn't know that for the longest time. I actually learned that when I was going through paramedic school. Uh, I always thought, for whatever reason, that when I noticed a trend of not getting any saves on all these cardiac arrests that I was going on, I thought, man, am I doing something wrong? My partner doing something wrong? Like, what is going on? Only 10%. That's a national statistic, by the way. But the big thing that I want to get into a discussion with you about is attitude. Attitude is everything. Now, I'm not going to sit here and preach to you and tell you that I was perfect when I worked in EMS, because I definitely was not. I will tell you that there were times where we would get a call and I would just be pissed at the world. I was like, are you kidding me? We're getting another call. And it took a while, but I eventually had to remind myself, like, I'm here for 12 hours. This department, this city, this county own me for 12 hours or 24 hours or 48 hours or whatever. They own me. I'm going to do whatever it is that I'm told to do. May not like it, but I'm going to do it. Now, I may bitch to my partner. I may be grumpy the whole way there, but I'm never going to take it out on that patient. And it's sad that I have to have this conversation, but I have seen firsthand, I have seen EMTs, paramedics, CNAs, nurses, doctors. I've seen people treat their patients so poorly that it's sickening. You chose to be in this field. You chose to help other people. You chose to provide medical care or emergency care or whatever for a reason. You do not have the right to treat that person like trash, regardless if you feel that their emergency is not an emergency. That's not for you to decide. What is for you to decide is how you are going to treat that patient, how you are going to treat that patient's family. I know it's tough. Family members and patients are going to treat you like dog shit. They're going to cuss you out. They're going to call you horrible names. They may threaten you and make threats towards your family. They may talk poorly about your family. The only thing you can control is your own actions and your own attitude. And I'm going to tell you what, if you have any intentions of sticking it out in that field, you got to get your attitude in check quickly and keep it in check. Because if you let the little things bother you the most, you're going to get burned out. You're going to get burned out just by your attitude alone before you ever get burned out about the pay or the benefits or anything like that. If you let things bother you so bad, how people treat you, how your boss treats you, how your supervisor treats you, how your coworkers treat you, if you let those things eat at you so badly, you're going to get burned out. And it's not to the point where you're just going to go to another department. You're going to get burned out entirely and you're not going to want to work in the field. That is one of the biggest problems that we have in EMS. I go back to saying that EMS is such a young field, it's a young career, and it is. It's like a teenager. Think back to when you were a teenager. I'm willing to bet your attitude probably wasn't the best. I'm willing to bet you were super sensitive and the littlest of things drove you nuts. Maybe mom and dad singing in the car while they're taking you to school or whatever. Maybe that just bothered you for whatever reason. You're a teenager. Everything bothers teenagers. That's what EMS is like. And if we want EMS to continue to be recognized as a profession and to gain more respect and get higher pay and get better benefits and all of these things, we got to stop acting like teenagers. Got to start acting like professionals. Start acting like adults. I say this, but I've seen grown adults in their 30s, 40s, 50s working in that field still throwing a fit every time a call comes in, or still throwing a fit because they feel like they got shafted for some reason. Stay out of the drama. Sticking with attitude, stay out of the drama. Drama's everywhere. It's definitely hard to stay away from because, maybe your partner's going to talk about it. Maybe your best friend's, talking about some rumor they heard, or, somebody's throwing a fit about something. But it's best just to stay out of it. Avoid the comments on social media. When you see these news articles that are talking about, you know, I, I've got a lot of friends that I used to work with that listen to this show. And I know on both sides of the aisle, without getting into the weeds, there's a lot of drama going on. I get it. Just don't even get involved in the comments. There's no reason for it. You don't need to respond. You don't even need to read them because chances are the people that are leaving the comments on there have zero clue what it is that you do. They don't know a thing. And if they do know, they're just doing it just to cause more problems. So just avoid the comments and the news articles on social media altogether. Set a standard with you and your partner. If you work with the same partner every time, or maybe you're at a firehouse, maybe you're a lucky one that you're at a firehouse and you have an ambulance that runs out of your station. You guys take turns driving the truck and being a medic. Set a standard with your crew. Doesn't have to be the whole department, but with your crew or with your partner, and say, this is how it's going to be. We're not going to sit here and start talking crap about where we work or who we work with. We're not going to start spreading rumors and get involved in the drama. We're here to do a job. We're going to look out for each other and we're going to set our own standard. I guarantee you at some point that's going to spread because people are going to catch on. It may not be tomorrow. It may not be next week. It may not be next year. But eventually people are going to see that Jim and Judy work together all the time, but they never get involved in the drama and they never spread rumors and they never do any of this crap. And that's going to catch like wildfire. So as we start to wrap this whole thing up, I know I went on a pretty long tangent, but there's a couple other things that I want to touch on real quick. We started this conversation off with how do we prepare ourselves, or how do we prepare the next generation for what it is that they're going to deal with in the field. And the best thing I can do is have an emergency kit. Now, an emergency kit is not a physical thing. An emergency kit is basically having a plan together. We all have, if you're in EMS, you have a first in bag. If you're in fire, you all have assignments on the engine or the truck or whatever. But your kit should include just some really simple things. So, box breathing techniques. I know I'm going to sound like one of those weird TikTokers, but box breathing techniques have really shown signs of helping drastically, especially when it comes to anxiety, um, things like that. So there are free apps all over, on Apple and Android, that help you with this technique. Highly encourage it. There's also videos on YouTube. Go on YouTube and you can find videos on how to do box breathing. I know people in the military do this quite often. I've talked to some people that they learned this from when they were in the military, especially when you start to get into uh, like the higher level training, like Navy SEALs and Army Rangers and stuff like that. But practice box breathing techniques. Have a lifeline. Lifeline is someone that you can call or text to vent to at any time. I tell people this all the time. You can call me, you can text me anytime, day or night. If I don't answer, I will call you right back. I keep my phone on night mode at night. Night mode kicks in for me at 9 a.m. and it shuts off about 5:30. If it's an emergency to you, doesn't have to be my definition of an emergency. If it's an emergency to you, call me twice. That gets through on the night mode. So have a lifeline. It just has to be somebody that understands the job and somebody that you can trust that isn't just going to tell you what they want to hear. Have a hobby. This is a big one. So hobby can be whatever. Maybe you like working with wood. Maybe you like building stuff out of wood. Maybe you like golf. Maybe you like me, sand volleyball or soccer or something along those lines, some kind of sport. Maybe going to the gym. Gym is a good one. It's not necessarily the best hobby to have, because statistically speaking, the majority of the people that go to the gym don't stick with it for long enough times. So think of some kind of hobby that doesn't involve work, but it's relaxing to you. Join a peer support team. This one is kind of controversial. So I think it doesn't matter how long you have been in a field to be a part of a peer support team. And here's why. Remember when I went back and was telling you that we do an awful job of sharing with people what it is that we do? Peer support is great for rookies to be a part of because they can hear the stories. Now, obviously, you can't go and share that information with everybody of, hey, Johnny Smith, he was part of an officer involved shooting. Like, don't go telling everybody people's personal business. But it's perfect for you to hear real world situations from the people that were involved in them. And when you start to hear that stuff, it helps you get through it if you go through something similar later on down the road. I know that sounds crazy, but it does help. So I think anybody and everybody should be a part of a peer support group. Now, the caveat to that is if it's going to make things worse for you, maybe it's not for you. If you can't get your attitude in check and you're just going to talk shit about that person later on, or you're judging them based off of what they're saying, maybe peer support isn't for you. But I think everybody should give it a try. I highly encourage it. So during your career, what do you do if you notice someone else or yourself are starting to show some signs of struggle? You're feeling depressed and all these different things. What do you do? So revisit your why. That's probably the first thing that you probably should do. what is your why, or ask them what their why is. Why are they in this field? If you ask somebody what their why is, there's a good chance that they may respond with, I don't know. And that's okay. But we need to get to the point where we can get that person to tell us why they got into this field originally. They're going to have to think back, but they have to get through whatever emotions it is that they're feeling at that time before they can even allow themselves to think about what the reason was of why they got in this field in the first place. So revisit your why. Revisit your emergency kit. We just went over that again. Think that stuff through. Take time for yourself. That can be hard to do. Use your PTO. Use your vacation time. Use your sick time. Take time for yourself, whether that is maybe you take a week off of work and you just spend it with your family. That's fine. But you also need to allow yourself to be alone and to think and to move on past what it is that you're dealing with. Speak to a peer support member, somebody I would encourage you to speak with somebody that's been doing peer support for a period of time, but have a conversation with them. Get that ball rolling. Most of these peer support organizations now, they have a system in place where usually it starts with a team debrief, and then, maybe you could do an individual debrief, a little diving deeper. Maybe it's simple as a phone call. Maybe they have resources to other professionals. Maybe someday here in the near future, there will be an organization that you can call and talk to a peer support member on another line. Who knows? But wink, wink, by the way, talk to a peer support member, and don't be afraid to look into professional help as well. Seeking help from a mental health professional. There's nothing to be worried about. I will say in public safety, this is still a struggle. I know my big thing when I first went and talked to a professional back in 2014, I did not want a label put on me. I did not want to be diagnosed with anything because I still wanted to be a police officer, or I still wanted to be a firefighter for the city or whatever. I didn't want that label because I didn't want it to hinder any chances of me getting onto another department or agency. I know a lot of police officers are worried that if they tell anybody that they're struggling, that they will get their gun removed, their badge removed, they'll be put in an office by themselves, which will open them up to criticism from other people because of it. I know that is hard to move past, and I know it seems like it is a huge obstacle to get around. But I would much rather you have to fight that battle than people having to attend your funeral because you went down such a dark hole and took your own life. So, wrapping things up, again, happy EMS week to all the medics, EMTs, everybody that works in the EMS field. I am extremely proud of you. Keep pushing forward. Things are going to get better if they're not better now. Keep moving forward. To all of those who won awards at the Indiana EMS Association award banquet, congratulations. Well deserved to every single one of you. You guys are all an inspiration to anybody and everybody that works in that field. With that, have a great week. Stay safe out there. Remember, May 30th at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, I will be having a live episode on TikTok and on YouTube with 8158 Podcast. We're going to talk about pretty much the stuff we just talked about now and find some more crap to dive into. It's going to be a great conversation. Please join us. Looking forward to it. We'll see y'all.